Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagglehas. Merry Christmas Eve to all of you out there in the comic book collecting community. Here we are, once again, Christmas Eve of 2022. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? We are here. Tomorrow's Christmas Day. And you know what that means? We have a little small tradition going on here on the Swagglehas YouTube channel, where on Christmas Eve, I've now been putting out videos of my Christmas wish list for 2020, whatever the next year is going to be. So in this particular case, it's going to be my Christmas wish list, or in this video, it's going to be my Christmas wish list for 2023. But before I get into the list, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. Now, of course, this is kind of my target list. I like to kind of put these things together, partly due to just my own personal comics that I would like to add to my collection. They're also due partly to speculation reasons. So I'm going to kind of get into the list, talk about the books that I'm going for, talk about some of the reasons why I'm looking for these books, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Now, the first book on my list is not one that's going to be particularly hard for me to find, but it is a classic book nonetheless. And of course, I'm talking about Uncanny X-Men number 141 from 1980, the classic Days of Future Past storyline, the classic cover with Wolverine on it. And this is just one of those books that I feel like is kind of a good staple book to have in anybody's collection. It's actually a book that I've owned before, but the one that I had was kind of in the sort of mid-grade range. So I would love to be able to find a kind of high-grade copy of this. And, you know, while this is, of course, the classic book because of the fact that it is the Days of Future Past story, I also like that it is the first appearance of the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants team. Of course, that one was led by Mystique. And most importantly for me, being a big fan of B-tier villains, the real reason I do want this one in my collection is because it is the first appearance of the character known as Pyro and also the character known as Avalanche. I particularly have a fondness for those two characters coming off the X-Men animated TV series. I have a lot of fondness of their character designs, just, you know, the costumes they have, how they would hang out with Blob and Mystique and be a part of this Brotherhood team. And I would really love to see a version of that team executed at some point, you know, way down the line in the MCU when they start to do those X-Men stories. Of course, we did get Pyro in some kind of way in the X-Men, the Fox X-Men franchise movies, but it wasn't kind of that classic design, the classic character archetype that we got in the animated show that I would love to see on screen. All right, the next book on my wish list for 2023 is another book that isn't necessarily difficult to find, but a classic book all the same. This one, of course, is Incredible Hulk number 271 from 1981. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first comic book appearance of the character known as Rocket Raccoon. This would, of course, be his second full appearance. This would be the first cover appearance of the character as well. And just a great book to add to the collection. Of course, we are going to get Guardians of the Galaxy number 3. And there's a lot of conversation, a lot of theories and speculation that that movie might be the last time that we see Rocket Raccoon, that they might actually kill off the character. And while I do think that that is certainly the case, like if I think about, you know, what would feel like kind of an emotional story, what would feel satisfying isn't the right word, but, you know, where would James Gunn want to take it? I could certainly see them doing that with Rocket Raccoon. But when I step back and I think about, you know, the portrayal of this character being how important Rocket Raccoon has become to Disney and pop culture, and, you know, how popular this character and Groot have become with the kids, you know, the younger generation, I really can't see Marvel letting go of this character. I mean, perhaps they would, you know, kill him off in this movie and then bring him back in Secret Wars. But I feel like, you know, Rocket Raccoon has sort of solidified himself to be like one of the mainstay characters in Marvel Comics. And for that reason, I think that this is going to be an important book for many, many years in the future. Now, it is not necessarily the first appearance of the character. That one comes from the Marvel Preview magazine. Although if we really want to get technical with it, he was called Rocky Raccoon and not Rocket Raccoon in that Preview magazine. So maybe that does make this book more important. Of course, there are people who have the bias against the magazines altogether. I myself am not somebody who loves the magazine format simply because they don't fit into those short boxes. This book is also the first appearance of the character known as Lila. Lila is a love interest of Rocket Raccoon, and we already saw her in the trailer for the Guardians 3 movie. So a book I would like to definitely pick up next year, probably after the movie. Ultimately, ultimately, it's going to be, when I find the best deal for this thing, but a great book to have in the PC. All right, the next book on my Christmas wish list for 2023, you know me, I love me some B-tier villains. I gotta add a B-tier villain book in my collection next year, and the one I'm talking about here is, of course, Tales to Astonish, number 38 from 1962. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first appearance of the villain known as Egghead. Like I already said, I love all these early Silver Age first appearances of these random villains, Asbestos Man, Eel, the Porcupine. Egghead for sure is definitely of that ilk. Maybe you can make the argument that Egghead is a slightly more notable character than that of those ones, but definitely in the kind of goofy side of Marvel when they were creating all these types of characters. And I really do love these books. I love the early Tales to Astonish books. I love, kind of the forced perspective that they were doing with all these covers. And not to say that there is much spec value with this particular character or this particular book, but one of the interesting things is that, Egghead was actually in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second film that we got in the series. If you guys don't know, Egghead's actual name is Elias Starr, and Elias Starr was the father of the Ghost character that was created in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, it doesn't feel like we're going to see him necessarily in Ant-Man number 3. Certainly that story is going to be revolving around Kang, but when they do bring Ghost back into things and maybe they start to explore plot lines in the future, it would be interesting to bring back her father and kind of do some stuff with Egghead. So you never really know with where things go in Marvel, but regardless, still a very cool book, a very cool cover in my opinion, and one that I would love to add to the collection. All right, the next book on my Christmas wish list for 2023 is actually going to be The Ultimate White Whale. Of course, the book I'm talking about is Darkhawk number 1. Absolute ghost book. You guys know this one. The ultimate grail. Everyone's grail. No, I'm just kidding. This is Darkhawk number 1 from 1991. First appearance of Darkhawk. But it's not the book that I want. It's not necessarily that I want, any particular copy here. I'm actually talking about picking up a CGC 9.8 signed book by Stan Lee. Now, we've had conversations on the channel about signed books. I personally am not one who has to have signed books. I think that they're pretty cool in certain situations, but they're not like super important to me. But this one right here is one that would be special for me in particular, and that would be to get a Darkhawk number 1 signed by Stan Lee. Now, 9.8 CGC census actually has 50 books on the census. There are 50 signed 9.8 Darkhawk number 1s on the CGC census, but we don't know how many of those 50 are actually signed by Stan Lee. So, maybe we can cut that in half or cut that, down by a third, because when I go through the Go Collect images, I definitely see more Danny Fingeroth and Mike Manley signature books out there in the market, though there are some Stan Lee books that have been signed on this Darkhawk number 1, and I feel like it would be appropriate for Swaggle to have one of those in his collection. All right, the next book, or books I should say, that I want to add to the PC for 2023 on my Xmas wish list of 2023 is actually going to be 2 and maybe a third one right here, depending on how we want to break it down. But let's just call this that I want to add some classic Batman books to my collection. That is right. Swaggle is starting to look at DC. He's getting excited about James Gunn doing his thing, and he wants to add some Batman books. Of course, the Batman books I'm mostly focusing on are Batman number 251 or Batman number 423. Of course, 251 is the classic Neil Adams cover, and 423, of course, is the classic Todd McFarlane one. Now, for 423, I would absolutely love to have a first print of that. And for both books, both instances, I would definitely want to focus on a higher grade copy for the PC. Now, the other book I have on this slide for Batman books is actually Batman number 11. Of course, the Golden Age book. That book right there would be not necessarily the first Joker appearance on a cover. It's not technically the first Joker appearance, but in my opinion, it is the first best Joker appearance on a cover, and that right there is just an early Batman that I personally would love to add to the collection. My favorite Joker cover of that era, and probably my favorite kind of early Batman book outside of Batman number 1, of course, that I would like to add to my collection. Of all of these books, of course, I would focus on Batman number 11, but I don't want to handcuff myself to that book because, of course, it is a very expensive one. So for 2023, I would be very happy adding the Neil Adams or Todd McFarlane book book to the collection. All right, the next book, or books I should say, that I want to add to my collection are, of course, Avengers books, but right here are the 10 books that I need to finish my Avengers Grail Run. Yes, in 2023 on my Xmas wish list, I would absolutely love to finish my Avengers Grail Run. Now, there are 10 books that I need still in my collection. Of course, I'm talking about 18, 20, 24, 26, 29, 73, 76, 88, 93, and lastly, 96. All of these books right here are just fill books. I have been able to check off all of the major keys of this run. The only two books that tend to be marked up whenever I see them out there in the wild are the 93 and the 96, because those covers are done by Neil Adams, and I tend to find that those ones are priced a little bit higher, especially 93, because it is a larger size format. I don't really know how I want to finish it all off or what I want to do to celebrate completing the Grail Run. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any ideas for me. All right, the next book I have on my wish list for 2023, it's another, kind of caveat slide here because it's a multiple book situation, but the books I have right here, the 5 ones, are actually upgrades for these 5 books that I already have in my collection. Of course, I'm talking about ASM number 6, Journey into Mystery 103, Tales of Suspense 50, Silver Surfer 3, and Silver Surfer 4. Now, ASM 6 is the first appearance of Lizard, Journey into Mystery 103 is the first appearance of Enchantress and Executioner, TOS 50 is first Mandarin, Silver Surfer 3 is first Mephisto, and Silver Surfer 4 is the classic Buscema cover with Thor on it. All 5 of these books are ones that I have already in my collection, but I would really like to upgrade all of my copies. And I think that that's something to think about for 2023, how we all want to kind of approach comic books here. I definitely think that it's going to be, kind of a long year, a tough one. None of these books are necessarily books that are going to be, impossible to find, but definitely they're all ones that I think in this current climate that we're in will be good times to upgrade. The Journey into Mystery, the Tales of Suspense, and the Silver Surfer, I would actually like those 4 books to be kind of in that 7.0 range. And then the ASM book, obviously, is the most expensive of the batch, at least proportionally speaking. And I would like to upgrade my 2.5 to the 4.0. You guys know me. I can't be having 2.5s in the collection. All right, a few more books on my wish list for 2023, but let's talk about this next one here. Of course, this is a big one. You guys know this one. Fantastic Four, number 49 from 1966. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first full appearance of the character known as Galactus, the second appearance and first cover appearance of Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is in my top 3 superheroes of all time, and it's really funny. Every time I think about the Silver Surfer, even though FF48 is one that I definitely want to add to the PC eventually, 49 is really just the book for me. I mean, I can't get over how incredible this cover is, and I definitely need this one back in the PC. When I made my trade and got scammed a few months back, this was one of the books that was a part of that trade, and I knew when I sent over all of those books I was sending, I knew FF49 was going to be kind of an instant buyback for me in my collection when I found the right copy. Now, I would love to add a 7.0 or higher to the PC, but when I've been looking at sort of the trends for this book, it hasn't quite hit that trend line. So I'm hoping in 2023 it does pull back slightly more so that I can make that purchase, because definitely it being a book that is an all black cover, I think being in that top 20% would be nice for this particular key, because it is a book that generally speaking has a higher census. All right, let's go on now to the second last book on my Christmas wish list for 2023. I guess this is another instance of multiple books, but of course, you know me, I gotta now add some more PCH books to the collection, and one of the ones that I want the most is one of these books right here, Tales from the Crypt, number 22 or 23 or 24 from 1951. And these 3 books right here would be the classic Al Feldstein covers. Now, I love EC books. I love the Tales from the Crypt stuff. Of course, Tales from the Crypt as a title gives me personally the most nostalgia when it comes to, comic books and thinking about the Tales from the Crypt TV show and just kind of the fondness that I had watching that show when I was a kid. And these are 3 of my favorite covers. I've made mention on the channel before about Al Feldstein. I like that he kind of puts everything sort of on a singular plane, and there's just like kind of a comedic effect effect to everything he does with his artwork. Even though, it is horror, there's just kind of a fun vibe to it. I've called it kind of like the Disney vibe. I feel like these images are something you could see in the haunted house of Disneyland. And I mean that, in a good way. And so for me personally, I would love to add one of these books to the collection. 22 is my favorite, and then 23 close behind that, and then 24 slightly behind that one. So one of these books will definitely make their way to the PC. I mean, I would love to have all of them, but if I do find the 22 price right, I will definitely pull the trigger next year. All right, and the last book on my Christmas wish list for 2023 is a big boy, one of the big Silver Age grails I would like to add to the PC. And of course, the book I'm talking about is Tales of Suspense number 39 from 1963, the first appearance of Iron Man. Now, I would, of course, love to add a lot of those big PC books, the Silver Age blue chip books, to the collection. AF-15s, ASM-1, FF-1, Incredible Hulk 1, etc., Strange Tales 110, all of those books. I'd love to add all of them. But the one that, I think about the most, just feeling like, yeah, that is the one that I would like to add to the PC, is Tales of Suspense number 39. I think Inception has already been planted. I think Swaggle will 100% be adding this book to his PC next year. And it'll be interesting to see kind of like where the prices go with it. Of course, if prices really, really do fall off in 2023, I think I might be adding quite a few of these sort of Silver Age blue chips to the collection. But, if prices kind of have pulled back to kind of where they're sitting right now, I think Tales of Suspense 39 is, in a perfect sort of target window for what I feel comfortable spending. So this book right here is a great one to add. I've always loved this cover. I actually do feel like this book might be slightly underrated or slightly undervalued. I mean, I am curious to think about, what that MCU effect might have on the comic book market, say in 10 years time. Like, the kids who grew up watching MCU, are they going to, want to buy comics when they come of age and have money? And if that is the case, you do kind of wonder about a character like Iron Man. I mean, is Iron Man next to Spider-Man basically the second most significant Marvel character there is out there in the market, just in terms of like, a public awareness? It certainly seems like he has definitely solidified himself to be of that level. So I do think that this book is maybe underrated and possibly undervalued, and I do want to add it to the PC. Well, that is all I have for this video. Those are the 10 books on my Christmas wish list for 2023. Let me know what you guys think. What books are on your target list for next year? I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas Eve, and I will see you in the next video.